Welcome to People and Profit, your essential business briefing. Coming up, a special report from South Korea as the government there imposes a maximum working week of 52 hours. We delve into the working culture and find out how it compares to other major economies. As European leaders gear up for another key Brexit summit, we take the temperature among British businesses, with less than a year to go until the UK leaves the European Union. And we'll be looking at how French towns are fighting to keep their commercial centres alive. First up, though, a big change on the way for workers in South Korea. From July 1st, the maximum working week, including overtime, is being cut by almost a quarter. Now, the limit will still be 52 hours a week, but some say the law could transform the economy. So, what's a working day like in South Korea? Our correspondent went to find out.
7 a.m., riding the Seoul subway. Exhausted workers fill the train, like this executive in a suit and tie.
First, I take a bus and then the train. I spend 3 hours a day commuting. I'm tired and I don't have time to rest on the weekend.
Ending a culture of overwork, that's the government's promise. According to the OECD, after Mexico, South Koreans work the longest hours. In this lab that designs cars of the future for Renault and other multinationals, researchers even work Saturdays.
Officially, the 8 to 6 is a working hour, our working hour. But most people have overtime work. Yeah.
Like how much?
3 or 4.
3 or 4 hours extra per day?
Extra, yes.
Overtime is rarely counted or paid, and that's how this small country became an economic success. In 1960, South Korea's GDP was similar to that of Cameroon. Today, it's on par with France. This hard-working woman in her 60s contributed to South Korea's economic miracle. Even now, she takes off just 1 week a year. At the end of a hard day, Seoul's workers come to dine in her little restaurant, known for its very fresh specialties.
We're rich today, but at the time we had nothing to eat, really. Even if we were hungry, there was nothing, not even rice.
1 a.m. in the morning, the work here is far from over, stretching until at least dawn. Wholesalers, including many Chinese, come here to buy clothing that will fill stores around the world. Bosses and employees must work incredibly fast to keep up with demand.
At first I was very tired. I was overworked. I was falling asleep. I don't work at night yet, but I wonder how our bosses do, because they also work during the day. They're here with us until late at night, then they sleep for 3 hours, and then it's back to work at 9 a.m. with the designers.
The sun rises on Seoul. The day is ending for some and marking a new start for others.
So just how does South Korea compare to the rest of the world? Well, Kate Moody's been looking at the 9 to 5 and beyond. Kate.
Well, Stephen, although they do top the list for developed economies, South Koreans don't actually work the longest hours in the world. According to the OECD, which includes part-time as well as full-time employment, that dubious honor goes to Mexicans, who work more than 2,200 hours per year, or just under 43 per week. In 2016, Greeks worked the longest hours in Europe, while Germans clocked in at just 26 hours per week. American workers fell in the middle of the spectrum at around 34 hours per week. The US, Japan, and India are among the countries that don't have laws about working time. Turkey calls for a 45-hour work week, while Mexico and the European Union officially set the limit at 48, although such regulations can be hard to enforce. France stands out as an exception. For nearly 2 decades, it has officially mandated a 35-hour work week. Anything over that is viewed as overtime and either needs to be paid or result in extra days off. But the rules don't apply to a large portion of the workforce, including managers and executives. And European data showed the average full-time worker in France actually worked just over 40 hours per week last year. That's only slightly under the Eurozone average. Now, longer hours don't necessarily make for harder workers. Luxembourg ranks as one of the most productive countries in the world, with one of the shortest working weeks. Lower and middle income countries tend to work longer hours, while the work-life balance is a priority in others. The OECD says the Netherlands, Denmark and France manage that best, supporting a healthy mix of work and play. Stephen?
Kate, thank you very much for that. Now, the meeting of European leaders at the end of June is being described as a key event in the Brexit process. There's less than a year to go until the UK leaves the European Union, and issues like the Irish border and Britain's future relationship with the EU are still up in the air. Uncertainty is bad for business, and many companies are still wondering what Brexit will change for them. And meanwhile, the British Chambers of Commerce, which represents thousands of businesses across the UK, has cut its economic growth forecast for 2018. The organisation is warning that the British economy faces its weakest year since 2009. Well, for more on this, I'm joined from London by Suren Thiru, who's head of economics at the British Chambers of Commerce. Thanks for being with us. How much of this slowdown can we attribute then to Brexit and issues around Brexit?
Well, our forecast shows that actually we're facing a broad-based slowdown. So the three key areas of the economy, consumer spending, business investment and trade, their outlook has weakened over the next couple of years. And there's a number of reasons for that. Brexit uncertainty is part of the reason, particularly on the investment front. But what's actually holding the UK economy back, is what we're expecting below average growth over the next couple of years, is a failure to deal with some of those long-standing structural issues facing the UK economy, weak productivity, and over-reliance on consumer spending and the services sector to drive growth. These are the sort of core issues that are holding the UK economy back. Of course, there are near-term uncertainties and near-term challenges, such as Brexit, such as the drop in sterling we've seen in the past year. They've had a short-term impact, but the long-term picture of the UK economy has been very much due to a weakness in productivity and some of those structural issues holding back UK growth.
Is there a sense from businesses that perhaps policymakers are being distracted by the big issue of Brexit and not addressing some of those more underlying problems that you've just talked about?
That's clearly a concern. While Brexit and getting the best possible Brexit deal is important, what will help businesses adapt to the new world is actually dealing with those sort of fundamental issues, the nuts and bolts of any economy. So getting access to the right labour, be it improving the skills system in the UK, and then having an immigration system that is better aligned to the wider economy, but also looking at improving physical and digital infrastructure. We're talking about really the boring stuff, so things like the local road network, improving potholes, ensuring broadband and people have network coverage across the UK. These are sort of nuts and bolts for any economy. You prove these, you prove productivity, and you prove overall economic growth.
One of the factors that you've pointed out in your report is a slowdown in the services sector. How important is that when it comes to the overall picture for the UK economy?
Yes, so we're predicting growth of 1.2% in the service sector this year, and that would be, if we've realised, it'd be the weakest outturn since 2010. And that's really important because the UK economy is essentially a service-based economy. It counts for almost 80% of economic output is from the services sector. So when that has a difficult time, the wider economy has a difficult time. If you break that down a little bit more, it's actually those consumer-focused firms, so those in retail and hospitality, who are struggling the most, and we're seeing that on the high street in the UK. And part of the reason for that is a slowdown in consumer spending. People are spending less, and that's having a weakening impact on the sector as a whole.
There is still a lot of uncertainty about issues like trade in the future. Is that of particular concern to your members, or what's their biggest worry?
Well, the biggest worry is about sort of those practical issues. So things like, who do I pay VAT to post-Brexit? If I'm an exporter and I export to Germany, how much longer is it going to take me to get my goods out of customs and to my customers? It's those sort of practical level issues that are really concerning businesses at the moment, and we're still some way from getting answers to those important questions.
What's the key action that you're looking for now from the UK government to try and clear up some of that?
Well, the key action from the government actually is to improve the domestic environment. As I said, while getting a good Brexit deal is important, actually fixing the fundamentals at home, so looking at ways of boosting business investment, particularly during this period of uncertainty, is a key driver. And we're already starting to count down to the autumn budget, the major fiscal event of this year. And the Chancellor should really use the autumn budget to look at ways of really incentivising greater business investment here in the UK.
OK, Suren Thiru, Head of Economics of the British Chambers of Commerce, thank you very much for speaking to us. Now next to a dilemma facing authorities in many parts of the world: how to revive urban centres that have been deserted by residents and businesses. The government in France is investing €5 billion to revitalise medium-sized towns. Emerald Maxwell has been finding out how they're doing it.
Shop windows displaying not goods, but for sale or to let signs. It's a common sight in medium-sized towns across France, with an average of 10% of shops now lying vacant. But Saint-Lô's traders aren't giving up. Sabine Sarraud's shop is never empty, thanks to her novel way of turning clicks into footfall.
Hi guys, today I'm going to show you some new arrivals.
She's Saint-Lô's unlikely YouTube star, with 1,000 followers in a town of 20,000.
The idea is also to bring in a new clientele, people who don't necessarily know what Saint-Lô has to offer.
You're putting online shops out of business.
Well, yes, but the difference is we also offer a warm welcome, good service, advice. It's VIP.
The idea came from Lucie Potier, the town centre manager, who was brought in to boost business. From special sales events to staying open over lunch, more than half of the town's stores have taken on her ideas.
We're getting the word out about what the high street has to offer, because we often search for things online and we don't know that they're already on our doorstep.
But it's not just businesses. Over 8% of housing in small and medium towns also lies empty. The French government is stepping in, channeling €5 billion to 222 struggling town centres like Saint-Lô. The council is using it to give a centre an overdue facelift, making it a more appealing place to live.
It's a virtuous circle. Make shops more attractive so customers want to live in the center, so they can get around more easily, and family life is made easier.
Repainted facades, aging apartments modernised. There are even plans to turn the eyesore car park into a green space.
Well, that wraps up this week's show, but the conversation continues on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.
What do you want from your news website? France24.com, giving you easier access to information and faster for a unique experience. France24.com, the international news website.